Today, the conversation will be on the current state of the Nigerian economy. The MPC meeting has started. The MPC meeting for the month of September started today. Will run till the close of work tomorrow. And there are, so many opinions as to what to expect that will come out from that meeting, especially considering what we have seen play out across, global economies. But I'm joined now by my guests, who I'll begin with, an economic analyst in the person of Dr. Samson Simon. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm also joined by yet another economic analyst, Bolade Dakolo. Thank you, Mr. Dakolo, for coming on the program today. I will begin with you. Okay, I will begin with you, Dr. Samson Simon. So many opinions, regarding what might come out of this meeting. But let us hear from you. I mean, there has been a slowdown in inflation recently, which some are saying will justify a pause in interest rate. And of course, we have seen, what has happened in the United States, the first rate cut in the past 4 years, and across global markets as well. But coming to Nigeria and seeing, the current economic trajectory from talking about inflation, which has, doused in the past 2 months. What are your expectations from this Monetary Policy Committee meeting?
Well, my expectation is that they will hold interest rates, they will either hike, they will cut interest rates, despite the fact that the US Fed has cut. And my reason for drawing this conclusion is on the premise that every decision by the monetary authorities should be data dependent. Data dependence is not only about the current state of data. It's not only about recent data. It's also about trends. It's also about expectations. And I think for the fact that inflation rate eased 2 months ago, in July, it slowed down back up. I don't think that's enough reason for you to start cutting interest rate. Mind you, our inflation is still very high. What is our target? Our target is 6 to 9%. And we are doing inflation of more than 30%. So it's still extremely high. If you look at the Federal Reserve, the target is 2%, and they're doing 2.5%. And this inflation has been easing for months. For the last 6 months, inflation has been easing. So they have some justification for cutting interest rates. However, in the case of Nigeria, we do not have. And mind you, the inflation that has been easing is food inflation component of headline inflation. The core inflation is still accelerating. And credit cannot be given to the central bank, in my view, for easing of food inflation. That is largely not within the purview of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So what is within the purview of the Central Bank, which is non-core inflation, cannot be decelerated, cannot be slowing down. So I don't think there is justification for them to cut rates. And for the fact that maybe because inflation is very high, some people will suggest that maybe they should hike. I don't think they should hike. They have been aggressive enough. Within a span of 2 months, they have hiked interest rates by 800 basis points. So I think they should watch and see how things play out.
Well said, Dr. Samson Simon. But over to you now, Bolade Dakolo. You've heard, Dr. Samson's point of view. But again, I will ask you, looking at the major global central banks like the U.S. Federal Reserve, pausing rate hikes, should Nigeria follow suit? Or what are the metrics, for coming up with such decision, at least from your own point of view?
I do not believe that Nigeria should follow suit with the U.S. Interest rate hike. Looking at the trajectory that the first analyst has given, it is very, very clear that U.S. has basic and standard statistics that they are using to be able to arrive at that interest rate decision. Looking at Nigeria seriously, you will see that even the inflation that is hitting is food inflation, and the core inflation is still very high. And also looking at comparing inflation with reality, of the economy, you see that the economy is still in a very bad shape. I believe that if the CBN wants to take a decision, it should be a whole decision for this present MPC meeting, and looking critically at the continuous hike in the rate of the United States dollar that is a key determinant factor in the Nigerian economy, looking at the level of insecurity, looking at the energy crisis that we are in presently. These are some of the factors that will continue to make core inflation to increase. And these are measures and decisions that when the CBN is taking the decision, should look at these key factors because they are key determinants to how the economy will run in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, aside from inflation and inflation rate, what other key economic indicators should the CBN consider when suggesting whether to raise or to hold interest rates? Go on, Mr. Idakolo.
Another factor that they must look at is the effect of the recent interest rate hike on the economy. Because looking at the ease of doing business in Nigeria presently, looking at the cost of loans in Nigeria, it has really affected cost of production to the extent that goods are rising on a daily basis. The cost of goods and services are rising on a daily basis based on the unfavorable interest rate hike that is applied by the banks to existing loan facilities that they are giving to their customers and to intending applicants for loan facilities from banks. You will see that the interest rate for the banks has increased tremendously to over 30%, and most manufacturers cannot be able to cope. And this has affected a lot of manufacturers to the extent that some have downsized, some have also reduced production, and those that have not reduced production has consistently been increasing the cost of their goods and affecting the economy. So when you look at the interest rate presently as it is, I believe that it is still very, very high and is affecting business seriously.
Over to you now, Dr. Samson Simon. At this point, what other alternatives would, to interest rate hikes, which we have seen happen a lot more recently, would you be recommending to the CBN, to manage money supply especially, and maybe inflation, in the short to long term?
I think the central bank has been trying to tame inflation. Apart from hiking rates, they have embarked on a lot of policies and programs to ensure that inflation is tackled, and the mission of the central bank is monetary, price and financial system stability to ensure inclusive growth and sustainable development. That is the overarching mandate of the central bank. Price stability is not an end in itself, in the sense that it is a means to achieving economic growth, inclusive economic growth and sustainable development. The central bank has been doing a lot of things. For example, the foreign exchange reserves are still part of the responsibility of the central bank, and we have seen accretion in the central banks. And when we have the bigger the foreign exchange reserves are, the more we attract foreign exchange reserves, the better of the economy will be. And when we have more than enough for FX, we can defend the international value of the naira. And I think the central bank has been trying to do that. But we know Nigerians like the naira strong. And it's not just about making sure that the naira is stable, but if possible for it to appreciate in value. And the fiscal authorities also need to meet the monetary authorities halfway in ensuring that price stability is attained. And like I already mentioned at the beginning, the ideal inflation level for Nigeria is 6 to 9%. We're doing way more than that, we're at 32%. So that's way above what is ideal for us. So we're still a long way off, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, not only by the monetary authorities, but the fiscal authorities as well.
You have talked to you have said that there is more that should be done, and in your words, not just with the monetary policy, but also with the fiscal authorities. But let me hear from you still, Dr. Samson Simon. What fiscal policies should be put in place now, to place side-by-side monetary policies? Because it looks as though we have only seen most of the efforts come from, the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Well, the fiscal authorities can help, particularly food inflation has been a major challenge. I know it is the food inflation that is in July and it will slow down in August, but it's still extremely high. It's still extremely high. Nigeria, if you look at food security for Nigerians, is arguably the worst when it comes to affordability of food and also the availability of food. So despite the fact that prices of food items have not crashed as much as they should, and people and households are still struggling. So if we can tackle the problem of agriculture, if we can fix agriculture, and what is the problem around agriculture? Insecurity is number one. That's basically within the purview of the fiscal authorities. You need to ensure security for people to go to their farm. If people cannot go to their farm, then they cannot do farming in the first place. They're talking about inputs, improved feed, talking about mechanization, because our yield is abysmal. So all these are the responsibilities of the fiscal authority. And if food inflation can come down, like we're seeing in July and August, that will help with the headline inflation. And so much can be made before inflation eventually. So the fiscal authorities can be another thing to ensure that we have a stable economy.
Over to you now, Bolade Dakolo. You have heard, Dr. Samson Simon speak regarding the efforts that we've seen so far from the fiscal side of the government. But what are your thoughts on, having a balance from the fiscal and monetary sides of government?
Yes, the fiscal side of government needs to do a lot more to complement what the CBN is doing presently. Apart from the fact that we need to shore up agricultural production and the issue of insecurity, which needs to be tackled head-on, we discovered presently that the purchasing power of ordinary Nigerians are extremely low, and because the purchasing power is low, their capacity to do consumer spending has gone down the drain a lot. So with the present consumer scheme that the government is trying to put in place, it is going to help a lot to shore up consumer spending, and it's going to oil the economy to the extent that more companies will be able to sell more of their goods than they have been selling before, and that will also boost the economy on the long run. So I believe that the government should look critically at the issue of consumer spending to ensure that the consumer scheme that is being put in place is adequately implemented to cover at least over 15 million Nigerians in the first place. If this can be done, between 15 to 20 million Nigerians in the period of a year, we will see a lot of activity in the economy. The second aspect I also feel that the government should intensify from the fiscal side is to encourage to increase the capacity of the manufacturing sector, as it has been promised for these single-digit interest rate loans to manufacturers to be able to increase their capacity, to be able to also boost production. If government can also do these issues and improve on SMEs to ensure that they also have access to these loans to boost their business, it will overall have a positive effect on the economy.
I would like for us to speak about, the elephant in the room, that is the foreign exchange rate. I came across a conversation on social media where most economic, people who are vast in the area of economics were talking regarding which is of more importance, that is, foreign exchange rate or interest rate. But there was the conclusion that foreign exchange rate seemed to impact Nigerians more than interest rate. But still with you now, Mr. Bolade Dakolo, how should the CBN balance its effort, in the area of stabilizing the Naira and also controlling inflation?
Stabilizing the Naira as against the US dollars is very key and is very important to our economic growth in Nigeria. it cannot be overemphasized the fact that the US dollar play a major role in our economy, and it affects virtually everything, every kind of business that you can do in Nigeria. Talk about health, education, tourism, export and import businesses, and every other time. So what the CBN can only defend the Naira to the extent of the foreign exchange reserve capacity that we have. And to a large extent, the CBN has been defending the Naira every month tremendously, but we still have large expectations, especially from Nigerians as regards dollar forex requests, and that is why we still have scarcity on a large scale. And when there is increased scarcity, there is no way the Naira can continue to strengthen if the CBN cannot meet demands. So the CBN needs to look at ways and means to ensure, in collaboration with areas where we can generate more forex, like in the oil and gas, like improving our export capacity, and also ensuring that our foreign direct investments is increased to the extent that our remittances, we should aim at doubling them. By the time we double our remittances with our FDIs and ensure that we do more of export and improve on the oil and gas remittances that are coming in from sale of crude, and as well as ensuring that we trap as much FX in the economy than before, it will help the CBN to be able to defend the Naira more. But presently, because of scarcity, the CBN has not been able to defend the Naira as it should.
Well said, Bolade Dakolo. And over to you now, Dr. Samson Simon, and still on, conversations around the FX market. We have, of course, seen, the CBN focus more on monetary tightening, and that has impacted, the interest rate, or the exchange rate rather. But let us hear from you now. How can the CBN create that balance between tackling inflation and managing the FX market?
There actually is a room, the regulator, so it's a balancing act for the central bank. And when we have our foreign exchange reserves are bigger and are growing, it is better for the economy, and that will help defend the value of the Naira. And when the value of the Naira is stronger, it means more purchasing power for the consumer. And on the other hand, if we have so much inflation, right, for the economy, it erodes the purchasing power of the consumer. And the monetary authorities have that responsibility. Mind you, the mandate of the central bank, one of them is managing the foreign exchange results. And once you get managed the foreign exchange results, they're responsible for foreign exchange policy. It's for the sake of the value of the Naira. And the value of the Naira goes a long way in determining the purchasing power of Nigeria. Mind you, we import virtually everything. We manufacture machinery, for example, and make other items, so we need to import. And when we don't have CapEx, or there is so much inflation, it's going to cost us dearly to import as a nation. And the monetary authority has the overarching mandate of ensuring price stability. And domestically and even externally. Domestically, you have to invest with certain inflation. But we know inflation has different components, and some of these components may not be exactly within the purview of the central bank. And under the last authentic central bank governor, we try to go, the central bank tries to go out of its way to ensure price stability. Unfortunately, that did not really end well. So I don't think the central bank, like the current central bank governor, Cardoso has been saying that they would rather work with other people that have better capacity to handle some of these things instead of the central bank doing this thing by trying to go outside its mandate to ensure price stability. For example, we mentioned food inflation. So it's very important for the central bank to know what it's supposed to do, and if there is a need for it to work with other government agencies to get the results that is desired.
Okay, now over to you, Mr. Bolade Dakolo. We have, come to the agreement that Nigeria's inflation is mostly cost push. And seeing that that is the case, do you think that pausing interest rate, or whatever your thoughts are as to what the CBN should do, what consequences do you expect from what decision it is that you are recommending, that should be brought at the end of the meeting tomorrow?
I'm expecting that the CBN will try as much as possible to hold interest rates so that we can be able to continue with other measures that can improve the economy. When the interest rate is held as it is presently, so the banks will not have any cost to increase what the interest rate that is being charged applicants for loans and existing loans presently. And that is also going to make the banks to maintain status quo while businesses continue to grow. Another aspect that I want to expect the CBN to do is to ensure compliance when it comes to banks' activities as regards reporting, to ensure that the banks are not taking advantage of CBN policies for only their benefit to the detriment of the economy. So the interest rate, if it is held, will also help to ensure that the other aspect of the fiscal policy will be able to implement the policies that will help the economy to continue to stand strong. We know food inflation is high. We know the core and headline inflation is also very high. But the factors that affect them are multifaceted, and they cannot be tackled only from the monetary aspect of it. So that is why I believe that as CBN is contributing its quota to ensure monetary stability in the economy, ensuring that the interest rate is not over the roof, ensuring that there is adequate compliance by banks, ensuring that businesses are able to thrive based on positive and cooperative business CBN policies. The fiscal side should also ensure that factors that are hindering economic growth, that are also encouraging continuous inflation, are also held involved. Insecurity is one of them that has affected so many businesses, not only the agri sector now, but also in other areas of business that has made goods and services not to be able to move as it should go. Another aspect also that the fiscal side should also look at is the ease of doing business in Nigeria and policy somersault, which is also has been prevailing. And these things have to be looked into to engender confidence in foreign investors and also local investors as well. So I believe that the CBN should, as much as possible, look at other areas of strengthening the economy, defending the naira, and ensuring that its policies have a human face.
Well said, Mr. Dakolo. And over to you now, Doctor. You have emphasized that, inflation has only slowed down, that the core inflation hasn't slowed down, but mostly food inflation. But peradventure, we do, see a pause in the interest rate hikes at the close of the MPC meeting tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that? And do you expect for these to have unintended consequences on inflation? Or what, do you look out for if that is the case?
It is a balancing act for the monetary authorities, because while you're trying to be sure that there is price stability, you tame inflation, you're going to inflict pains on Nigerians. Businesses are going under because of the high interest rates. Well, in a bid to protect the purchasing power of consumers, you are also, on the other hand, risking the possibility of businesses closing and people being laid off. So it's not really an easy thing. So the priorities, you have to set your priorities right as a central bank. If you feel inflation is out of control, you have to be efficient to bring it within target. And by the time you bring it to target, then you can look at other side. And that's what the Fed in America is also trying to do. While it has been trying to tackle inflation for a while, it has been tackling it, it's increased it since COVID, it doubled it, tripled it, it quadrupled it. But now it's bringing it down by the 50 basis points up. Because the central bank in America, which is the Fed, has a dual mandate of price stability and employment, full employment. So it has realized that full employment is suffering. So in the case of Nigeria, the price stability is a key to ensure inclusive growth and sustainable development. So while we're trying to ensure price stability, the possibility of engendering inclusive growth and sustainable development. So I think they have done a fair share by aggressively hiking rates. The stance has been not obviously hawkish for a while now, particularly since Olayemi Kadusi came on board. So there's a need to, in my thinking, for them to hold the rate in this MPC meeting. So I'm seeing, because the impact of monetary policy is long and varied. So we may not have seen the full impact by now. So give the fight the benefit of the doubt, allow some time to see the impact. I'll not advise us because people are enjoying the businesses are going under because of high interest rates, because of the cost of credit. So it's a balancing act for the monetary authorities. And I think the best in my view should be holding it for now.
Very insightful conversation there with economic analyst Dr. Samson Simon and Bolade Dakolo. Thank you for all the insights you've shared today on the program.
Thank you.
And this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily. But keep the conversation going on social media. What are your thoughts on the current state of the Nigerian economy? And what are your expectations for the ongoing Monetary Policy Committee meeting? My name is Chiamaka Nendu. Thank you for watching and bye for now.